Hi, it's Imogen Lamport from Inside Out Style, and my question of today comes from Leanne, who says how to part with items that don't work but are expensive or sentimental. I have real trouble letting go, and I understand this. It's very, very common. There is what is known as a sunk cost in items. So you have either sunk money into it or emotions into it. And this is why people stay in bad relationships too, because there is a sunk cost. I've spent all this time and energy and all this sort of stuff on this relationship, and even though it's not working, finding it hard to let go. The same sort of things for items in your wardrobe is understanding that there is a sunk cost in there. There was a fascinating piece of research. They found that when we don't own something, it's very easy to not have it in many ways. So they gave, it was at a university, they gave a class. They gave half the class a fairly ugly t-shirt, but it was free and it may be worth about, $5. So they gave half the class this t-shirt and then half the class got nothing. The next day, they said to the half of the class who got the t-shirt, would you like to give your t-shirt to one of the people in the class who didn't get a t-shirt? Now, even though the t-shirt was a bit ugly and, not of great value, it was amazing that suddenly that t-shirt had a greater value. Less people, in fact, most people did not want to give that t-shirt away, even though they may never wear it and they didn't particularly like it. Which is a very interesting thing to think about. It's an interesting phenomenon to know that once we own something, we want to hold on to it. And this is why it's really important to become a conscious shopper and to really think about what you're buying and making sure that when you do shop, that you are not just buying it'll do clothes or things that aren't quite right. Because once we bring them home, it's much harder to give them up, even if we're not wearing them. And that is what is so fascinating about this. So now there are a few people in the world, and I have some friends who find it very easy to get rid of stuff, but they are often the exception to the rule. More of us get some sort of sentimental attachment to it or have some sort of emotional attachment to the money or the sunk cost, that was expensive, what I, put into it, because we've got to think about it, the time to make the money, the energy to actually go shopping, and also the time to go shopping and find it and all those sorts of things. And then we're handing over this hard-earned money, and it's much harder to give these things up. So what do you do? How do you let these things go? Well, I've found, having done wardrobes with many people where they've got very sentimental items, and we're talking, this was the, dress I wore on my first date, or this was my grandfather's dressing gown, something that they're never going to wear, but is just taking up space and cluttering up their wardrobe. So there's a few things to think about here. Firstly, let's look at the really big picture. How much space have you got in your house? Now, you might have an enormous house and you've got plenty of space and you could put more wardrobes in and you could keep expanding your wardrobes for a long time. But most of us, our houses are already fairly full up. And in fact, what that's doing is cluttering up that space. And so thinking about how expensive, if you're going, it was expensive, how expensive would it be to actually build another room onto your house to be able to store all the things you're having trouble letting go of? That starts to get way more expensive than the cost of whatever that item is. So that is something to think about, that if you're worried about what is the expense? Well, actually, it's more expensive to keep it than to let it go. Or, and to build another room onto your house. Imagine you have another room on your house and every day that there's just this stuff in it, but you're never wearing it. You're never getting any value out of it. You just are storing this. Now, imagine your house was a hotel. How much would you be paying for that extra room? Would you pay for an extra hotel room every day just to keep your stuff in it? It's unlikely. We often don't realize what the cost of our space is, and that is something to think about. Then we could also think about, if I'm not wearing it, often one of the things with sentimental items is we have them in our wardrobe and we see them all the time. And so this is where we have this attachment to them. So one of the things you can do is put the item away, maybe put it in a box or a bag or something, and remove it from your wardrobe so you don't see it. put it in the garage, put it away somewhere, so you're really not seeing it for quite some time. And maybe in 6 months or a year, or sometimes even longer, but sometimes it's when it's out of sight, it's out of mind. And if you actually put it away, and if you've not missed it, if you haven't thought, where is that thing? I really need to wear that. Just know that you could put a date on that bag or box. Just don't even open it. Go, in 6 months' time, if this has not been worn, if you haven't gone out and desperately gone and got that thing out to wear it in 6 months' time, or longer, a year, whatever it is for you, then you could go, if I've not missed it, I don't even need to open the bag up. It just says, donate on this date. And then you can just let it go, because you've stopped missing it. If we're not seeing things all the time, we stop missing them. We stop feeling so attached to them because we just, we don't notice that they're really not there. So that could be something to do to help you get rid of particularly sentimental items. Also too, is to think about, you can keep the memory. Have you got a photograph of yourself in it? That is another thing, that it's like, just because we get rid of the thing doesn't mean that we are getting rid of the emotions or the memories that are attached to it, particularly if it is, happy memories. And I think it's really important. If they are sad memories, you really want to get that thing out of your house. Sad memories are not what you want to have. They're the wrong sort of juju to have in your house. But if they are happy memories, go, do I have a photo of myself wearing that garment? Or can I take a photograph? If it's you see the thing and that brings those memories back, then can you take a photograph of it? One of the other things I've done, so I had one of my clients, she had a maternity dress and her kids were all grown up. They're in their 30s. She was never going to wear this maternity dress again. But it had great sentimental value to her. So what she did is actually she took the fabric, because it was a pretty floral fabric. She took the fabric and she made it into a little pillowcase to go on a little pillow that sat on her bed. So every day she could have those memories, but she wasn't cluttering up her wardrobe, and she had a useful little item. So it was a little pillowcase for a small cushion that went on her bed. So you can think about how can you repurpose the garment if there is something very, very sentimental about it that you would, that it really brings some great memories back for you. The other thing, particularly with expensive things, particularly if they're good quality, we often think, but they're so good quality and they were expensive and I can't let it go. Now, is it still in fashion? This is something to think about. If it's really dated, does it need to be you? Now, if it's a really high quality item, high designer, can it be something that could be donated to a museum or an art gallery? Because often those places are looking for great examples of particular designer pieces from different eras. So if it could go and sit in a gallery and you could have a little plaque next to it saying donated by your name, would that be something that would allow you to let it go so it's not cluttering up your space? But if it's just that kind of expensive for you, but not in that high designer range, this is often where can it get another life with somebody else? Can you sell it? eBay or one of the consignment, there's many designer consignment places like The Real. Or sometimes it's just, can you give it away to someone that it actually suits? Because maybe it's a color that doesn't suit you anymore, or it's a style that you've worked out really doesn't work for your body. Can you donate it to someone who will actually get the wear out of it? And even I've found that some of my clients, where they have good quality clothes and suits and things, they just go, I'm just not wearing this stuff anymore, but I have trouble letting go. I often find if you donate it to a charity, such as Dress for Success, or one of those kind of charities that redresses women to get back into the workforce, they feel like that rather than just donating to the charity shop, which can feel like, well, it could go anywhere or that it's not really appreciated, that this garment or these garments will be much more appreciated if you donate them to that sort of charity. So there are some ideas if you are thinking, I'm really, I've got these sentimental or expensive items, I'm having trouble letting go. Put them away, put them out of sight. Don't look at them again before you donate them. Let them have some space. And most of the time, honestly, you won't be missing them because you're not wearing them anyway. So I hope that helps if you have those sorts of issues, because they are very, very common. We all have all sorts, I know myself, I've bought clothes overseas and I'm sentimentally attached because it reminds me of a trip. Or I've bought something and, the style isn't right, but I've sunk all the money into it. So it's learning to let the things go and remembering that your time and your space is also expensive and incredibly valuable. So you don't want to clutter it up with stuff you are not wearing. And in the end, it is just stuff. And we can get very attached to it, but this is why moving it out of your space really helps you to put some space between you and that thing and helps you to let it go more easily. Bye for now.